Hello, how are you? Amanda, SEINT artist. I want to talk about redness. I want to talk about redness with your rosacea, redness with your scarring, and redness with your breakouts. Breakouts are a texture. And I want to start by saying double cleanse. Whether you wear makeup or not, light makeup, full coverage makeup, you should be double cleansing. Take off your makeup, wash your face, wash your skin. So my biggest thing is that I suffered from cystic acne to the point where I went and saw a dermatologist. I had to get put on medication. And then I tried all these different proactive, I tried all the things and it just wasn't working. And then I found skincare that worked with my skin, but the double cleansing was key. Even if you don't wear makeup, you still need to be double cleansing. All right. The next thing I want to talk about is your correctors. I have two that I'm going to work with today. This is Demi, now called a cream corrector, in G1, which is green, and 1 means that it's light. Aspen Contour. This is our lightest contour. So good. It's color concrete. These two do two different things. The cream correctors are just that. They are creamy, whereas Aspen is a contour and it's more dense. And they do different things, and they are different colors. If you have really deep purple rosacea, I would suggest something different, and G1 might be one of them. But let's look at the color wheel here. If you have that deep purpley color of rosacea, I would do a Y, a yellow one, Y1, try Y1. Okay, but we're gonna work with these today because I have been specifically talking to people who have fiery redness with their rosacea and their scarring and their breakouts. So if you have texture, active cystic breakouts, or active breakouts that are very red and very raised, the more makeup you have on, the more texture you're going to be accentuating. And we're wanting to enhance our beauty without showcasing our texture. You may get all the coverage of the color, but your bumps they look chunky and gunky. That's what I remember when my cheeks were blown out in cystic acne. And so finding what works with your makeup. When you are working with correctors, this is not coverage. Your foundation colors are your coverage. This is something different. This is prep, and you want this light, like a veil. You should still see your problems, but the tone of the redness should be muted. Muted. It's kind of like watching TV. You don't hear the sound, like the red, but you still see the show. Okay, so your stuff is still showing. It's that color we're eliminating. So I'm gonna do two things. I'm using a shape brush. Get the silver shape brush if you want this one. If the gold is all that's available, go get the shape brush because you'll get more use out of it. That's just my opinion. Okay, so I'm gonna take this brush and I'm gonna go into Aspen. You wanna just stipple in, and you want your brush to just look dusty. You don't want it clumped together because, again, we are not putting on coverage. We are correcting redness. I don't want to dip my elbow into anything. So I have red acne scars, and then I have a touch of rosacea. Today's not as fiery. Rosacea is just one of those things that some days it's great, some days it's not. Today I have pretty decent rosacea, which is nice, but I have cystic acne. So we're going to take this dusty looking brush and I'm going to sweep over the red, and it's just going to dull my skin, but my stuff is still there. I have broken capillaries and stuff around my nose. I'm going to pinch this and dense it up, and then I'm just going to sweep this around the redness around my nose so it's muted and it's not heavy. I put it there last because this is a very textured area because it creases and I have a smile line. So I like to clean up this area first, and then I'll go into my crease, and then anywhere else I'll see redness, which is like my chin area. I have some scarring from old cold sores, and so I use this to mute those areas down too. Okay, but we still see the stuff. You should have no gray tone to it. If you do, you have too much product on, and then when you put your foundation on, it's going to be heavier, it's going to be thicker, and it's going to accentuate. Also, look at your breakouts. I have oily skin. If you have really dry skin and there's flaky skin, get a good moisturizer that works with dry skin. You want to hydrate that skin. Okay, next we're going to go into G1 on the cream correctors, also known as Demi. Taking that same big end, we're going to go in to that G1. I'm just kind of putting it around the brush, and again, it should just look dusty. Okay, so we put that on. I want a little more because mine's a little dense. Dusty. Do you see how it looks dusty? That's what you're wanting. You don't want your bristles stuck together. I have a raised breakout here, an old healing one here, and then I have my redness from my old scarring from years past. You would think it would dull down, but I think mixed with my rosacea, it just makes it look flary all the time. So again, I'm not wanting to turn my skin a light color of green. We don't want that. We just need to sweep this on, and we're going to be muting the red. Look at that. You still see the problem, but the red is gone. We're going to pinch it again, and we're going to get that red broken capillaries down here and then just redness right here. Grabbing a little more, and I'm just going to sweep over my brows where I get red, and then again on my chin. It doesn't take a lot. These should last you just as long as Aspen, if not longer, because they are 100% pigment. So just keep that in mind, but this is not a coverage. You're still gonna see the red, or not the red, I'm sorry, you're still gonna see the stuff, the spots, the raised texture. Texture is texture, you can't get rid of that. If it's casting a shadow, you can't get rid of a shadow, okay? Now I wanna talk about your main highlights. If you have breakouts or scarring, I'm gonna color match you to a color that's a little too dark. So I want you to use your bronzer on your neck to lift the color up. My neck is always lighter than my face, but when I have stuff going on, I'm using a shade a little darker because if I go too light, it's going to enhance texture, okay? And so one of the things is less is more, especially when you have texture. So you don't want to use a dense brush. You don't want to use, say, a powder brush. These are very dense. You don't want to use, I wouldn't even recommend a 3D brush. Honestly, I think that the shape brush is your best brush, or the blush and bronzer brush would be a good one. I'm going to stick with the shape brush. It's a light coverage brush because Saint is what I'm going to use. It's 80% pigmentation. I'm only going to talk about a main foundation. I'm not going to do my whole face. Using your main foundation with Saint is 80% pigmentation, so you're going to get coverage with less product, which means less texture. And if you already have texture from active breakouts, that's awesome. Okay, you're not going to be accentuating it more and making your skin and your bumps look thick and chunky. I always thought my skin looked like I had clumps of makeup on because I would pile so much on, and then I was setting it with a bunch of powder because I just didn't quite understand makeup. And then when I started playing with creams, I finally understood makeup. That's a different talk. Okay, so I use a couple different shades here. I'm gonna go into Sandy. It's a little dark for my skin, but I'm going to use Sandy, and I'm not going to use a lot. You, again, want it to look more dirty. I mean, this is black, so it's going to show up a little bit more. Okay, and this is going to balance my skin. So I'm going to start at the bottom part of my jaw here, and then I'm going to start stippling this up. Okay, so I used the cream corrector here, so I want to be really light with my stippling because I don't want to mess up that cream corrector. I want it to work with my main highlight. And when we're talking about this, I'm going to pick a main highlight that's going to have some added correctors. June, if you're more fair skinned, but also Sandy is another really good one. And sometimes Mango is another great one because that orange tone in Mango, that warmth can help hide. Okay, but I'm Sandy, and I'll go full Oompa Loompa if I go Mango. So I'm playing with your undertones too. Anyways, we're gonna go in, I'm gonna go over my scarring here, and then I can go in right here, but it's about light tapping when you're working with cream correctors. You want these to work together. To be full disclosure, cream correctors were never meant to be hybrided with the cream highlights. That's just something that naturally happened as we knew it would. So keeping that in mind, you want a light hand when you're applying this because you want to make sure you don't compromise that cream corrector that's already quite creamy. Whereas Aspen is dense and it stays a little bit better, but look at the balance I have, okay? And then when we go from here, we'll bring it down, but when we're picking our contours and our blushes, we're going to pick colors that are based off of what's going on with our face because we don't want to pick something that's going to, again, enhance that texture. And so maybe keeping your blush a little bit more neutral will help. And Madrid is a really great one. If you like those pink tones, Madrid is great. Hollywood is great. If you're wanting something that's more neutral, Nude is another really good one. I also really love Rosewood. And then there's also Sandstone, and those also can work really well with it. But if you have rosacea, keep your blush up top, and if your rosacea pulls through, it almost becomes a part of your blush, and let it work with you rather than fighting against it. Okay, so I'm going to go again into that main highlight Sandy, and I'm going to start at the bottom, and again, it's on there, but my bristles aren't clumping together, and I'm able to stipple this on the lower part of my face to balance my skin, bringing it into my chin. Sandy does have a component that does help with redness. And so I'm very purposeful when I pick it, okay? And then I'm going to tap in a little bit more. I'm going to go over my scarring here, and then I can go to the crease. You want to go to the crease last because it's a high texture zone and it can easily clump, because if you're smiling, everything's getting moved and gathered and it'll come up to that area. But tapping is key when you're correcting. And that's the coverage that you get using those two. Try them. If you have one, really play with the lightness of it. I want you to practice with the lightness of it. If you have a blend brush, you have a shape brush, you could even try using the fluffy end of the blush and bronzer. Find a fluffy brush. If you're not wanting to get a Saint brush, e.l.f. has great options. Go find a smaller fluffy brush and play with it. Even an eyeshadow fluffy brush can help if you're working with acne. Using a little fluffy brush like this and then just spot treating also works really well. But just remember, and I can't emphasize this enough, correctors are meant to be used lightly. They are not coverage. They are taking a tone away so that you can then work with your texture. It's two different things. All right, that's it. I'm going to show you a picture of what I look like all done up because I just feel like you need to see that. Have a great day.